1800. That's not a long time ago.
That was.
You've been in here before, right? No? Where are you from?
I'm from Bartlesville.
I've seen you somewhere.
Probably Walmart. I used to work there.
Okay.
In
Which part?
Electronics.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I bought lots of electronics for this kid that was just on the phone. He's not a kid now, he's 23.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you'd like, you look like there's a guy that brings a group or something, you know, and I thought maybe you'd been in here before, but no, that's probably it.
Yeah.
You know, I see people and I'm like, but I can't ever, I used to work at Walmart too years ago, not this one, but, and then I worked at Dillard's. You know, I've worked a lot of retail things and then I have my own businesses and then I've done this for 15 years now and people will say, and I'm getting old, so I'm like, were you Walmart or were you Dillard's? I have to go through my list of retail. Where do I know you from? Yeah, anyway.
It's all right.
First time in here?
Mm-hmm.
It's only been open 57 years. Are you always from Bartlesville?
I haven't always been from Bartlesville. I grew up in Glenpool and Tulsa.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you grew up in Tulsa, didn't you?
Cool.
Yeah. We both live up here now.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Bartlesville's not bad. Dewey's quieter.
Yeah.
I like Dewey. And I live out in the country, so it doesn't matter anyway.
Cool.
So y'all just out messing around, looking at things?
He's big into history.
My son is too. So, do you know anything about this guy?
Comics?
Yeah? Did you read a little bit about it, or did you look it
Yeah,
up?
I looked it up.
Okay, so we show a little short video in our theater.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with that. It kind of
Yeah.
gives a history. You'll like
You wanna
if
do
he
that?
likes history. It's about 15 or 20 minutes.
You want to do that
Good?
first? You want to walk around first?
It's
Walk
kind of
around
nice.
Okay.
Oh, you do?
He wants to walk around first
Okay.
and do the theater.
Okay.
That work?
All right. Yeah. So it kind of starts up here with early photos, and then everything in here was his. So
Cool.
the whole collection is him. I will get it.
Uniform.
Yeah.
I do it kind of more about that too.
Okay.
Just because it's get started.
I'll open the medicine box. Got herbs and different things they use.
The earphone?
Yep. Oh, witch hazel. Oh, smolder guns. And watches and different things.
Or guns?
Yeah, right there.
Oh.
With some spurs.
I don't even 1940. He died.
Huh?
He died in 1940 because of the car accident.
Oh, did he?
Yep.
Hey, look at this.
His car would turn and his tire would turn and he was dead.
Mm.
Yeah, that's not good. He was only 60 years old.
Showcasing.
Right, born and grew up in Tulsa.
Mm-hmm. He did, or just you?
Hmm?
You and me, or him?
No, he was born in Pennsylvania. Yeah, I've been in Pennsylvania one time when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look at that thing.
What is that?
It's a big chest that he stored stuff in.
What is that, guns?
Yeah.
Swiss and Weston. My dad's the same gun, but different.
Yeah, same brand.
Yep.
My brother said they're good guns.
Yeah, from so different. What's so different? My dad has a baseball and a gun.
Look at those.
That's a rifle.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
Can you know?
Full gauge.
Can you go in a shotgun?
You can own one now.
Uh,
And you can still, I think you can still buy 12 gauge shotgun shells.
Hmm.
Those miniature axes are called hatchets. Or
Yeah.
throwing axes, depending on how they're used. Hatchets, we used to use hatchets, but when we go camping, those are weighted different, so you can throw them.
Where?
Mm-hmm.
Hotel.
Right.
That's a hotel.
Oh, cool.
We used to go in there next winter.
Is that where you're wanting to go next?
Yeah.
You already tell them, right?
No, not yet. I heard it's haunted.
No, I don't buy that.
me too.
These trophies.
What is that?
Railroad crossing, but over the river.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it says Topeka.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
1899. That's one time ago.
Topeka Santa Fe Railroad. I don't know exactly where it's at, but
King River. Johnstone Park.
That could be. Dream catchers. Native American dream catchers. You ever seen one of those?
Let's do test though.
In Native American lore, it says that bad dreams will get caught in it if you hang it over your head while you sleep.
My aunt used to have one of those. She's a native. She's Indian.
Oh, you were right. It says right there he got killed in an automotive accident.
Yeah.
My mom used to collect those.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Check that out.
That's good.
Yeah. You want to do the video?
Yeah.
Okay. When she gets done. I think he's ready for that video.
Let's go.
Go over there. I'll follow. Sit up front.
Yeah.
He starred in the very first cowboy movie ever made, and before he was finished, he'd filmed 366 more. He did most of his own stunt work, But ironically, when he died, it wasn't because of some daring stunt gone awry. Instead, he was done in by a piece of luggage.
Oklahoma's Cox Channel presents Cowboys in Tall Grass, the Tom Mix story. Brought to you by Bank of Oklahoma, proud to be part of Oklahoma's history and looking forward to being part of Oklahoma's future. By Phillips Petroleum Company Museum, celebrating our Oklahoma centennial and heritage. By Danny Beck Chevrolet, prices are cheaper out west. By Devon Energy, as a company with deep roots in Oklahoma, Devon is proud to call this great state our home. And by Gilcrease Museum, the Museum of the Americas.
It is space, stretching from sunrise to sunset. Once, it was mostly grass, thousands of acres of grass, so they named it Tall Grass Prairie. At sunset, the wind usually sighs and settles, and in the soft dusk, if you listen carefully, you can imagine you hear ghosts. The soft clopping of a cow pony, plodding cattle, even the bison exploring the evening air. A nearly full moon can make puzzling shadows in the grass, and the ghosts come out with stories of the cowboys in tall grass. It may be one of the most famous moments in early day Western movies. Tom Mix is mounted on his horse, Old Blue, his first movie's mount, who preceded the famous horse, Tony. An old photo preserves the epic leap across a canyon. Was this really Tom Mix, or is it part of the myth surrounding this actual early day Oklahoma cowboy who left a trail across the tall grass? Paul Mix, cousin of Tom, starts us at the beginning as we unravel the story.
I've heard it both ways. Some people say, oh, that's impossible. If you look at the picture, it looks impossible, but the picture is somewhat of a, guy shooting upward, okay? And the chasm looks bigger than it is, and the picture's a little blurred. In actuality, there was a wooden platform built on both sides of the chasm, and the horse, jumped the chasm apparently and did it. Now, other people said Tom didn't do it, a stunt man did it, and blah, blah, blah. I feel that probably it was a stunt, all right, that Tom did. Tom did have stuntmen, but from my information, Tom would say, well, let me try it first. And 90% of the time, he was successful doing his own stunt, and they never used a stuntman.
The Tom Mix cowboy story, part reality and part myth, begins in Oklahoma tallgrass country. People in this country regarded themselves as free and independent. They figured they could make decisions that would determine the paths their lives would take. But many times, the people lived lives that lived them more than they lived their lives. Tom Mix is born to Elizabeth and Ed Mix in Mix Run, Pennsylvania. His father is of English and Northern Irish ancestry. His mother is Pennsylvania Dutch. At age 12, young Tom is already wearing homemade cowboy outfits. He drops out of school, joins the U.S. Army, drops the H in his middle name, and becomes Tom E. Mix, or just plain Tom Mix. He moves around in the Army, becomes a first sergeant, and marries his first wife, Grace Allen. He moves to Guthrie, Oklahoma, is divorced, spends some time with the Oklahoma Cavalry Band, and then Zach Miller of the 101 Ranch hires him to perform in the big show to be done for the editorial convention held on the 101 Ranch. In 1906, while still at the 101 Ranch, Tom Mix divorced his second wife, Kitty. He stayed at the ranch at various times in 1907 and 1908 and added appearances in Seth Bullock's Cowboy Brigade and Cheyenne Bill's Wild West show. In this time frame, he also worked as the town marshal in Dewey, Oklahoma. In 1909, he married Olive Stokes. She was part Native American. Some say Delaware, some say Cherokee. Tom made a film for Sealing, a pioneer movie producer. The exact location of filming is clouded, but many historians believe ranch life in the great Southwest was filmed north and east of Dewey, Oklahoma, near a landmark known as Blue Mound.
I grew up in the shadow of Blue Mound. There are many legends concerning it. It's quite a historic place. All of the outlaws, from the Daltons to Henry Starr, Henry Wells, all of Cherokee Bill, Bell Starr, all of their initials are up there on those big rocks. There are rocks up there that are actually as big as a freight car. Tom Mix had a major role in making the first Western movie. They called the movie Life in the Great Southwest and approached my grandfather because they wanted to use Blue Mound as the main focal point for the movie. So my grandfather loaned them 12,000 head of longhorn cattle, and they would drive these cattle continuously around the base of it, making it look like there were 150,000 head of cattle, and they drove them at a high rate of speed. And grandfather always said that was one year that he didn't get as much for the cattle because they ran a lot of fat off of them.
1912, and the public saw more Seelig films starring Tom Mix. The Range Riders also featured his third wife, Olive. Another one, Pride of the Range, and another one-on-one ranch cowboy, Hoot Gibson, in the cast. Hoot would later become a Hollywood star. More films followed in the years from 1911 to 1916. In 1913, he made 43 pictures and did stunts. In 1914, he made 54 films and did stunts. In 1915, it was 53, and in 1916, 41 films done with Seelig, and all doing his own stunts. By 1920, Mix had surpassed William S. Hart in earnings and popularity. But not before Hart had set the Western B-movie standard for the stoic, honest, independent cowboy of Western movies. The first film Hart did depicted the Cherokee land run in Oklahoma. Tom Mix posters were now commonplace in theaters all over America, but now Mix had a co-star. His horse, Tony, had become almost as famous as Mix. Tony was compared to the classic Morgan horse breed.
Oh yeah, he loved horses. He had a whole stable full of horses after he became famous. Tony Sr., I guess, had to be the most famous horse because in the 20s, he was Tom's, biggest movie horse. And Tony was trained by Tom, and Tom was one of the few people maybe that trained on horses. But he even had in the circuses later on, he trained all of the horses in the circus himself. And there's one movie that still exists, My Pal the King, which gives you an insight as to what Tom really did in the Wild West part of the show. In that movie, it shows him, for example, lassoing 4 horses abreast, from the ground. Tom standing on the ground, he lassos 4 horses. That's a very difficult thing to do while you're standing on the ground. Shows his trick riding, roping, getting on and off the saddle, laying overside, and shooting a gun from every position imaginable. And it's just a good example of a Wild West show and what Tom was capable of doing in the sea.
This film, referred to by Paul Mix, was not shot until 1932. The King was played by a youngster, Mickey Rooney, who went on to great movie fame.
Tom Mix was actually a rather sentimental guy. Some wags said he loved his horses more than his wives. His first movie horse was Old Blue, who was retired in 1914 and died in 1919. One of Tom's regular crew, Pat Chrisman, saw a colt trotting beside a vegetable wagon on a Los Angeles street. Pat bought it, sent it to Arizona for early training, and sold it to Mix for $600. Mix named the horse Tony. In November 1932, Tony, now famous, was retired.
They say Tony had a vocabulary of 500 words. What was true was that Mix could talk to him, tell him what to do, show him the sequence, and Tony seldom messed up his part. After his divorce from Olive, Mix married Victoria Ford. They moved to Hollywood, and in February of 1922, daughter Thomasina was born. Later, they broke ground on their Beverly Hills mansion. The string of mixed marriages and divorces continued.
Wife 4 was, we call her the leading lady wife. And evidently she was part of the problem before Tom and Olive were divorced. But after about a year, Tom did marry Victoria Ford, that had been a leading lady for him in several of his movies. They also had a daughter named Thomasina, but things just were not going well in that marriage and all. And finally, after about 12 years, Victoria had found a count and divorced Tom Christmas Eve. Their divorce was final on Christmas Eve, and she went on to marry his count and live abroad. He didn't marry for a little while, and in his final marriage was to Mabel Ward, who was an aerialist in his circus, and they seemed to have a pretty firm marriage. And they were married for 8 years before his death. They were still together at the time of his death.
The Great Depression was closing in on Mix, and while he was never on a food line, he did get some bad reviews. His 7-reel film Outlawed drew comments like, "The saddle girths are slipping under the king of the cowboys." The film The Big Diamond Robbery had Tom riding on the wings of an aeroplane. The review said, "Tom Mix is bowing out. The jingle of his spurs will soon be an echo. The sight of his 10-gallon hat, just a memory." Tom thought this might be his last movie. He lost a fortune in the stock market crash of 1929, lost his Arizona ranch, and signed up with the Sells Floto Circus. Victoria divorced him. He developed peritonitis and nearly died. Tony came to visit him. Then in 1932, he finished up 9 films for Universal, including Destry Rides Again, which many critics feel was his best movie. It was his first talking role.
Oh, kids.
The film was more than the usual Western B movie because it also had a message of greed and revenge.
Have you anything to say before being committed?
Your Honor, I have no quarrel with the court or the jury, but I have got something to say to these witnesses. Listen carefully. I'm not going to jail forever, and when I do get out, everybody be ready, because I'm coming back and herd you fellas together like a bunch of quails and remind you of your actions here today.
The Tom Mix Ralston Straight Shooters are on the air. And here comes Tom Mix, America's favorite cowboy. Huck Tony, come on, boy. Start the morning with hot ropes and...
In 1933, the box tops on Ralston cereal began to disappear all over the country. The reason? They were valuable. If you were a member of the Straight Shooters Club, you could send in for all kinds of good stuff.
At one time, there were over 1 million children enrolled in what was called the Straight Shooters Club. This was presented by Ralston Cereals, who did the endorsement for Tom. And through the years, they offered many premiums.
Till next time, this is Tom Mix saying adios, Straight Shooters.
The voice of Tom Mix on the radio show was for many years that of Joe Curly Bradley. Although his picture was often used in the marketing, Mix himself was never on the show.
He started touring with Sam Dill's Circus and going out on the Sells Floto Circus tour, and then he eventually bought Sam Dill's Circus and turned it into Tom Mix Circus. And in that time period, when it was good, it were the best days of his life, because all he had to do was go from town to town, saddle up the horse, and ride in a circle, do a few shooting tricks, do a few roping tricks, and audiences would cheer. And he could hold back time, because when an audience is all the way across an arena, they don't see the wrinkles. They don't see that the hair's been blacked with shoe polish. And he stayed in incredible physical shape, but when you got up close, you could see the age. But by keeping his audience back, and having the white spotlights, I mean, his ex-wife Olive talks about how he was resplendent when he would come into the arena. He'd be all in white, and there'd be these big spotlights, and he would literally glow like the second coming of Jesus as he rode around the ring, and people would go insane.
But in 1935, the circus was in financial trouble. At the age of 55, Tom Mix came out of movie retirement to do a 15-episode serial, The Miracle Rider. Mascot Pictures paid him $10,000 a week, and it took 4 weeks to complete the 15 chapters. The producer of the serial later admitted he took advantage of Tom, but Mix was badly in need of cash to keep the circus going.
When his circus was collapsing, he handed it to Ruth, and he disappeared in the night and accepted an offer from a circus in Denmark, where he was offered $3,250 a day plus expenses to come tour with the Circus Bella. And he went and he stayed, and he made enough money that when he came back here, he had paid off the entire list of creditors from the circus. And he actually had money in the bank when he died. People say he died of pauper. He didn't. He died with $150,000 in net worth.
Then came the fateful and final month of October 1940, and his long Arizona trip in his Court. Many Hollywood stars were attracted to fancy, fast cars. Tom Mix was no exception. The morning of October 12, 1940, he left the Santa Rita Hotel in Arizona after an evening with old friend E.C. Eccles. As he drove along a dusty road at high speed, he came to a construction site. He tried to brake and swerve. The suitcase behind his head flew forward, killing him instantly. Hard to believe a really tough guy would be killed by a 20-pound suitcase.
At that speed, probably.
Yeah.
Tom Mix learned from his father how to work magic with horses. He dreamed as a kid of being a cowboy. He dreamed of being a ranger. He dreamed of being a frontier marshal. And he came out west with a love for horses and a magical way with horses. He came to Oklahoma. He couldn't ride that well. He couldn't shoot that well. He couldn't rope that well. But he learned. And in the process of learning, he transformed himself from a poor kid from Pennsylvania to the most glamorous, capable, exciting cowboy star in the history of movies. And he did it with the understanding that, unlike his predecessors, William S. Hart and some of these other people, that he wanted to be a role model. He wanted to be the no smoking, no drinking, clean cut, but he wanted the fantasy of the West to continue. The belief that the good guy was the good guy with a code and sense of honor. And Tom Mix's personal life was not as clean as his image. He had a lot of problems, but he was zealous in his desire to be a hero to the little kids all across the country. And he was, for many years, he was called the idol of every American boy. And he was very zealous in protecting his fans and making sure that his fans had somebody to look up to.
The question often comes up about the last months an older Tom Mix spent making a long trip to visit so many old friends.
You know, there's a lot of speculation about that. Some have said that that was his farewell trip and that he was perhaps suicidal at that time because he made a point of going to see every old friend he ever had. Many of them from way back before the 101 Ranch days, you know. The people who wrote about his last trip, the people he went to see, varied wildly in their descriptions. Some people said he was wonderful, he was his old self. Other people like Walt Coburn and some of these other people like Jack Eccles, they said he seemed very forlorn. So that's one of the questions I don't know if we'll ever find the answer to.
The death of Tom Mix made major news across the country. His body was interred in Forest Lawn in Glendale, California. A very simple plaque marks the grave. On October 12, 1942, 2 years to the day after the death of Tom Mix, Tony was put down. He was pushing the age of 40. The book, The Amazing Tom Mix, shows the chasm jump on the front cover. Near the back of the book, author Richard D. Jensen has a picture of the early days at the 101 Ranch. These were the words of Tom Mix.
In the old days, with a blue sky above me, a good horse under me, the vast acreage of the old 101 Ranch rolling green about me, and a bacon-filled atmosphere from the chuck wagon calling me, I was the richest of men. How rich the recent years have told me.
His body may be buried in California. His likeness, by Lejos Marco, may be on the walls of the Cowboy Hall of Fame and Western Heritage Center in Oklahoma City. But his spirit, that rests someplace in tall grass country in Oklahoma.
Has been brought to you by Gilcrease Museum, the Museum of the Americas, by Devon Energy. As a company with deep roots in Oklahoma, Devon is proud to call this great state our home. By Danny Beck Chevrolet, prices are cheaper out west. By Phillips Petroleum Company Museum, celebrating our Oklahoma centennial and heritage. And by Bank of Oklahoma, proud to be part of Oklahoma's history and looking forward to being part of Oklahoma's future.
Is that work?
That's it.
Yep.
Good.
Thank you.
Quite the guy.
Thank you for letting us come in here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for coming by. It's been pretty quiet today so far.
Yeah.
Since Friday. It was probably Friday?
Thursday.
Thursday. I don't know.
My Friday.
I'm wishing it's Friday, I guess. Have a good day.
You too. Man, that's sad.
It was. But he had a long life.
Yeah. At least he's in heaven now.
Yep.
Oh crap, crushed my Cheeto.